a lot of times the reason why we stay in the situation we are is because of our unbelief and our complaining. You ask God, why am I still here? Why am I still dealing with this problem after all this time? But yet we don't realize that it's because of our complaining. We need to stop complaining and put our faith in God. Hello, everyone. I hope you guys are having a great Saturday. Hope you got full and turkey and everything. Had a great Thanksgiving. The first video was talking about talking about all the Iserialites and all this stuff and them complaining, and we're going to continue on to that into this video and the third one. But let's go ahead and dive right into it. Go over to chapter 17, 1 through 7. Now this is I'm sure everybody has heard this one time or another about Moses splitting the rock. But this is another instance that something else that God has done for them. And again, they miss it and they still just don't see it. On verse 1, we'll start at verse 1, and it says, "All the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin, after their journeys according to the commandment of the Lord, and pitched in Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. Wherefore the people did chide with Moses, and said, Give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, Why chide ye with me? Wherefore ye do tempt the Lord." See, when we face something like something simple, I mean, they were in the wilderness, they were in the desert, and they were, hot. There's not much water in the desert. They was going through circumstances that I understand why they would be tempted to complain. But with everything they have seen, there should be no complaining. I mean, God has provided and God has done things over and over and over and over. So there's no reason to complain. God does everything in our life today. We have no reason to complain, but we do. God does stuff every day. He wakes us up in the morning. We get from one place to the other. We may not give God the glory like we should, but He does. He gets us up in the morning, gets us from point A to point B. He brings us back again. We've got to have that faith in God that we got to give Him the glory. He wants us to give Him the glory. And then verse 3, it says, "And the people thirsted therefore no water, and the people murmured against Moses, and said, Wherefore is that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst?" Back then they did have to face the fact that they had to strive sometimes more for their food and water. Today we don't really have anything to worry about. We got an abundance of food and water everywhere, so we really don't have nothing to complain about. But we do. If we don't get the kind of food that we want, we complain. We're not thankful for stuff anymore, and I'm guilty as much as anybody else is guilty of it. We need to be thankful for what we got. Especially nowadays, we got abundance of everything. God has blessed this nation like crazy, but this is a very complaining nation. We have so much in abundance, but we have not a lot of people being thankful for it. So it can all be taken away in a snap. It can happen. I mean, all these other countries that are facing famine, even today, they're facing famine, and we have no clue what it's really about to be. There is no. I mean, I'm not saying there isn't people in this world that does in America that does challenge with getting food, and there are people doing it, and I'm not taking that from them, because there are instances where that people are having a hard time getting food, and the homeless, and is understandable in that. But the majority of people don't have to face that. I never, if I can think about, I mean, we was low on money and sometimes not having very, a lot to choose from. But our tables were always had food. We always had food one way or the other. So I never really knew what it was to hunger, not know where my next meal was coming from. So we definitely have, a lot to be thankful for. Let's go. Let's read verse 4. It says, "And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, What should I do unto these people? They be almost ready to stone me." They were so scared and so upset that they wanted to kill him. And some people, when they get, we have that fight or flight. Some people wants to fight, some people wants to flee and hide, but they wanted to kill them because they were so scared. They didn't have no trust in God at all. They didn't want to. They didn't trust God. They was just complaining and not have no trust in Him at all and no belief in Him. Even though they saw 10 times more of what we have saw in our lives, and they don't understand. They didn't have an excuse not to understand with everything they've seen, but yet they still just want to complain. The lack of belief in God, that showing an unbelief. In verse 5 it says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Go and before the people, and take with thee of the elders of Israel, and thy rod wherewith thou smotest the river, and take it in thine hand, and go. And behold," on verse 6 it says, "Behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel." Verse 7 says, "And he called the name of the place of Massah and the Meribah, because of the childing of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, Is the Lord among us or not?" So they didn't even see. They tempted him by saying if he was there or if he's not. God is constant. He's here all the time. Sometimes we may not feel him as close as other times, but God is always here. Their lack of unbelief is overwhelming on how much they don't believe that God can do these things after all the stuff they've seen. God smote the water. They literally saw water come out of the rock. This was in the middle of the desert. There wasn't no water behind it or water around it. It literally come forth out of the rock, and yet they still didn't believe. To me, I just don't get it. Why they couldn't believe that? Right? You ever heard the quote? Seeing is believing, but they still saw it and still didn't believe because of their unbelief. They didn't want it. They were stubborn. They didn't want to see it. So let's turn over to Numbers 11, chapter 11, 1 through 10. So this is the fourth complaint. So we've gone through, since the last video and this one, we're into the fourth complaint. But like I said in the previous video, there might have been more that I've missed, but these are the ones that stand out the most that I found. That's why I said we need to go back, and if you can, go back over and read as much of this as you can, and you'll get more understanding of it. Chapter 11, start with verse 1. It says, "And when the people complained, it displeased the Lord." So that points that out, that they complained and it displeased him. He gets angry when we complain. And it says, "And the Lord heard it, and his anger was kindled, and the fire of the Lord burnt among them and consumed them that were in the uttermost parts of the camp." See, if you guys listen to the other videos previously, I said there is consequences for our unbelief. A lot of times the reason why we stay in the situation we are is because of our unbelief and our complaining. You ask God, why am I still here? Why am I still dealing with this problem after all this time? But yet we don't realize that it's because of our complaining. We need to stop complaining and put our faith in God. And He may continue to keep us in it. And He can snap a finger, stop it just like that. But if you're complaining in the unbelief, He's going to keep you there. This is why they come there. But these consequences, now I'm going to reread verse 1 again, because you got to listen to what He did. This is what He did. This is after all these 1 through the 1 through 3 of complaints that I found. This is the consequences, first consequence. And when the people complained, it displeased the Lord. And the Lord heard it, and his anger was kindled. And the fire of the Lord burnt among them and consumed them that were in the uttermost parts of the camp. He killed them. He burned them up because of their unbelief and their complaining. He got tired of it. In verse 2, it says, And the people cried unto Moses, and when Moses prayed unto the Lord, the fire was quenched. But did you hear how it said that? They cried to Moses. Why didn't they cry to God? They should have cried. They cried to Moses for Moses again to help them. They go to Moses instead of going to the Father. We need to take it to the Father. That is what we're supposed to do: is take it to the Father, take it to God. And verse 3 it says, And he called the name of the place Taberah, because the fire of the Lord burned among them. In verse 4, and the mixed multitude that was among them fell lusting. And the children of Israel also wept again and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? What? Did they not just I don't know how much a period of time this was, but because it doesn't say on the period of time from what happened with them burning them up. And here they are again, complaining again. What? Crazy. The children, in verse 4, it says, And the children of Israel also wept again and said, Who shall give us flesh to eat? Verse 5, it says, We remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. But now, verse 6, but now our soul is dried away. There is nothing at all beside the manna before our eyes. Here they are again, going right back to Egypt. They're putting themselves right back in Egypt. One step forward, two steps back. Because they can't get their eyes off of the past. And what that, instead of keeping their eyes towards God and putting our eyes towards God. We can't do anything if we don't keep our eyes towards God. We keep our mind and our thoughts upon the negative stuff. And complaining constantly on this and complaining on that and complaining on this. If you do not stop complaining, you're going to stay where you're at. Stay in that wilderness. In verse 7, it says, And the manna was as carder seed, and the color thereof as the color of bdellium. And the people went about and gathered it and ground it in mills, or beat it in a mortar, and baked it in pans, and made cakes of it. And the taste of it was the taste of fresh oil. And when the dew fell upon the camp in the night, manna fell upon it. Then Moses heard the people weep throughout their families, every man in the door of the tent, and the anger of the Lord was kindled greatly. See, and then they ended on verse 10. Then Moses heard that the people weeping throughout their families, and every man in the door of his tent, and anger of the Lord was kindled greatly. And Moses also was displeased. So he even heard them complaining some more, even after God did what he did, and they still was complaining. Or they're fighting this battle or fighting that battle and all this. It's because you guys are living in the wilderness. Quit living in the wilderness. Stop living in that wilderness and quit complaining. Time to put your eyes upon the God and to move forward. Quit looking back at what you had, which was imprisonment. Sin is bondage. Quit looking at that sin and looking at that bondage, and move forward and look your eyes upon God. Keep looking forward and moving forward, and you're going to have a lot more greatness in your life. But we're going to continue this in the third video, and in the third video, and wrap everything up. But anyway, come back and listen to the third installment too, and I hope you guys would bless on this here too. And we're going to finish it up in the third video, and like I said last week, um, we are doing stuff for getting stuff together for the homeless. And if you guys would like to contribute any money towards it, it'd be appreciated if you're able. Find out more information on my Facebook page. The same name, 2237 Ministries. And you'll find me there, and you'll find more information about it. I do have the information in my bio on my page here too. So if you guys would like to contribute, like and subscribe, and to share this with people so they may be blessed. This is what I do this for, is people get blessed and get closer to God. This is what it's for. It's not about me. It's about God. But anyway, you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope you guys are blessed. And come back and check out the third installment.